The great crystal hall of Nexus Prime buzzed with the voices of 1,000 alien species. Kate Morrison stood at the human podium, her hands steady on the speaking platform as she watched the sea of strange faces before her. Some had scales that glowed in the dim light. Others floated in bubbles of water or energy. The Zephyrians clicked their mandibles, and what she had learned was their version of laughter. Council. Chairman Vexstar raised one of his forearms to call for silence. His insect-like eyes fixed on Kate with what could only be described as amusement. The human representative wishes to speak again about territorial rights, he announced to the assembly. How fascinating that such a young species believes it. Deserves the same space as civilizations that have existed for millions of years. Kate had been Earth's ambassador for 3 years. She had seen this mockery before, but today felt different. Today the Council was voting on Resolution 2847, which would limit humanity to exactly 12 star systems. 12 systems for a species of 8 billion souls who had already colonized 47 worlds. Honorable Chairman, Kate began, her voice carrying clearly through the crystal acoustics of the hall. Humanity requests that this resolution be reconsidered. We have proven ourselves as peaceful traders and reliable allies. Our colonies harm no one and benefit galactic commerce. A sound like breaking glass filled the air as the luminal delegate Tishana materialized at her speaking. Crystal, her energy form pulsed with colors that Kate's translator indicated were expressions of disdain. The humans speak of peace while building military vessels, Tishana said. They speak of harmony while expanding at rates that alarm established civilizations. We build ships to protect our trade routes from pirates, Kate replied. The same. Pirates that raid Draxi agricultural worlds and Thalassan research stations. Our patrol fleets have prevented 47 attacks in the last year alone. Vexstar's mandibles clicked again. Your species reacts with emotion rather than logic. This is precisely why the Council must contain human expansion. You are unpredictable, and therefore dangerous. Kate felt her heart sink as she saw the vote tallies appearing on her translation screen. Species after species registered their support for the resolution. The Altarians voted yes because humans competed with their mining operations. The Centauri Collective voted yes because human traders offered better prices than their established merchants. The Void Dancers voted yes simply because they found human emotions disturbing when the final count appeared. Kate stared at the numbers for a long moment. 847 votes in favor. 1 vote against from the small Draxi delegation, whose agricultural worlds depended on human protection from raiders. The silence in the hall stretched as every eye, sensor, and consciousness focused on the human ambassador. Kate Morrison had faced hostile alien environments and deadly space phenomena, but this moment required a different kind of courage. Very well, she said simply. Humanity formally withdraws from the Galactic Council, effective immediately. The explosion of noise that followed her words shook the crystal walls. Delegates buzzed, chirped, sang, and transmitted their shock and amusement. Vexstar pounded his ceremonial staff for order. The human delegation cannot simply leave, he declared. There are treaties, trade agreements, territorial accords that must be honored. Kate nodded calmly. We will honor all existing agreements for exactly 1 standard year. After that time, all human diplomatic, military, and commercial contact with Council species will cease. We will withdraw from all disputed territories and close our borders to Council vessels. Tishana's energy form flared brighter. This is nothing more than a tantrum. Your species will return within months, begging for readmission when you realize you cannot survive without the Council's protection and trade networks. Perhaps, Kate said, or perhaps not. She gathered her small stack of documents and walked toward the exit. Her security detail, 2 silent Marines named Jake Sullivan and Ben Foster, fell into step beside her. The hall erupted again as delegates shouted questions and demands. But Kate Morrison did not look back. In the months that followed, the galaxy watched with growing amazement as humanity kept its word with frightening efficiency. Human trade ships completed their scheduled runs with mechanical precision, delivered their final cargoes, and then simply stopped coming. No drama, no threats, no demands for better treatment. On the Draxi homeworld of peaceful fields, Counselor Nixar watched the last human patrol ship depart from their system. Captain Lisa Morgan had commanded the vessel for 2 years, protecting Draxi farmers from Crimson Nebula raiders. Her ship had responded to distress calls within hours, not the weeks it took Council bureaucracy to authorize military action. Captain Morgan, Nixar had transmitted as the ship prepared to leave. Are you certain this is necessary? I'm sorry, Counselor, Morgan had replied. Orders are orders. The Council has made its decision about humanity's place in the galaxy. We respect that decision. On the industrial world of New Detroit, Factory Supervisor Ron Blake oversaw the shutdown of the largest antimatter processing facility outside of Zephyrian space. The plant had supplied fuel for cargo ships throughout the sector, but the withdrawal order was absolute. Every piece of human technology was to be removed or destroyed rather than left behind. Dr. Alex Carter, Earth's chief xenobiologist, packed 15 years of research into secure storage containers aboard the last human science vessel. His studies of alien biochemistry had led to medical breakthroughs that saved lives across dozens of species. But the Council had voted that humanity was too dangerous to remain in civilized space. The most shocking withdrawal came from the frontier. Territories where human colonies simply vanished overnight. Entire settlements that had existed for decades left behind only empty buildings and cleared fields. The colonists had departed so quietly that neighboring alien communities didn't realize. They were gone until supply ships found abandoned towns. On Nexus Prime, Zeklos, the Thalassian archivist, studied the efficiency of the human departure with growing unease. His aquatic form floated in its mobility tank as he reviewed data from across Council space. Humans had honored every single agreement, fulfilled every contract, and left no loose ends. It was almost mechanical in its completeness, unlike other species that had been expelled from the Council in the past. Humans had not begged for mercy or attempted to negotiate. They had not sabotaged installations or stolen resources. They had simply gathered their people and their technology and departed for regions beyond the galactic rim, where no Council sensors could follow. The final human message came exactly 1 year after Kate Morrison's declaration. It was broadcast to every Council world simultaneously on all communication frequencies. The speaker was identified as Director Sam Cooper, humanity's new coordinator for external affairs. The withdrawal period is now complete, Cooper's voice said. All human diplomatic and commercial relationships with Galactic Council species are hereby terminated. Human space is now closed to all Council vessels. Any attempt to enter human territory will be considered an act of aggression. This message will not be repeated. The transmission ended, and human space went silent. 3 years passed before the Council began to understand what they had lost. Trade routes that had flowed smoothly through human space now required dangerous detours through pirate-infested regions. Medical supplies from human research facilities stopped arriving at frontier hospitals. The patrol fleets that had kept order in the Rim territories were gone, leaving smaller species vulnerable to raiders and aggressive neighbors. But by then, it was too late to reconsider. Humanity had departed quietly, and the galaxy would never be quite the same. 5 years had passed since the last human ship disappeared beyond the galactic rim, and the Council was celebrating what Chairman Vexstar called their greatest diplomatic victory. The former human territories had been divided among the major species according to careful negotiations that had taken 2 years to complete. The Zephyrians claimed the mineral-rich worlds, the Luminals took the energy research facilities, and the Altarians expanded their industrial operations into abandoned human space. Dr. Alex Carter floated in zero-gravity aboard Research Station Horizon, a facility that existed far beyond any star map known to the Council. The station hung in the darkness between galaxies, powered by technology that would have seemed impossible to the aliens who had dismissed humanity as primitive. Around him, his team worked with quiet intensity on projects that pushed the boundaries of known science. Linda, what's the status on the quantum fold experiments? Alex asked as physicist Linda Hayes drifted past carrying a data tablet. The third test was successful, Linda replied. We can now fold space across distances of up to 50 light-years. Dr. Rodriguez thinks we can push it to 100 with the new power systems. Alex nodded as he reviewed the data. 5 years of isolation had produced scientific advances that would have taken decades under normal circumstances. Without the need to explain their methods to alien oversight committees or share their discoveries with species that had rejected them, human scientists had been free to explore ideas that challenged fundamental assumptions about reality. Engineer Ron Blake supervised the construction of new vessels in the orbital shipyards that surrounded Horizon Station. These ships bore no resemblance to the blocky freighters and simple patrol craft that humanity had once operated in Council space. The new designs were elegant curves of metal and energy that could manipulate gravity itself, making them faster and more maneuverable than anything in the known galaxy. The first squadron of Phantom-class scouts is ready for field testing, Ron reported to Commander Jake Sullivan during their daily briefing. They can remain undetected within a few thousand kilometers of any known sensor array. Jake studied the sleek vessels through the observation deck windows. Each ship was crewed by volunteers who had trained for years in the hidden facilities that humanity had built in the void between stars. These crews had names the galaxy had never heard, men and women like Captain Tony Miller and Commander Amy Johnson, who represented a new generation of humans shaped by exile and purpose. Meanwhile, in Council space, the first serious problems were beginning to emerge. The Vorthan hegemony, emboldened by humanity's absence, had begun making territorial demands on smaller species. Their war fleets, led by the ambitious warlord Grixthar, pushed into systems that had once been protected by human patrol routes on the peaceful world of Gentle Rivers. Counselor Nixar of the Draxi people watched with growing alarm as Vorthan scout ships probed their outer territories. The Draxi had always been a farming people, content to grow food for the galaxy and avoid conflict. Their defense forces consisted of a few outdated patrol boats that could barely handle smugglers, let alone military vessels. The Council must respond to these provocations, Nixar transmitted to Nexus Prime, his message carrying the desperation of a species that had always depended on others for protection. The response came 3 weeks later, a formal statement that the matter would be referred to the Committee on Territorial Disputes for consideration. The committee would review the case and issue recommendations within 6 months, assuming all proper documentation was filed and fees paid. Nixar remembered when Captain Lisa Morgan's patrol ship had responded to Draxi distress calls within hours. Her crew had driven off raiders with professional efficiency and never requested payment or lengthy explanations. The contrast with Council bureaucracy was painful to contemplate. Ziklos the Thalassen, archivist, had begun a private investigation into human activities beyond the Rim. His official duties involved maintaining historical records, but his personal curiosity about the departed species had grown into an obsession. Using his access to deep space sensor networks, he searched for any trace of human presence in the unexplored regions where they had vanished. What he found troubled him deeply. There were gravitational anomalies in areas where no massive objects should exist, suggesting the presence of large artificial structures. Energy signatures appeared and disappeared in patterns that indicated advanced technology operating under some kind of concealment system. Most disturbing of all were the ghost signals, brief transmissions in frequencies that human technology had once used, appearing for microseconds before vanishing completely. They haven't simply hidden, Ziklos concluded as he floated in his archive chamber, surrounded by holographic displays of astronomical data. They're building something out there. The Vorthan raids grew bolder as months passed without effective Council response. Grixthar-S fleets struck at agricultural worlds, industrial facilities, and research stations, claiming that these territories belonged to the hegemony by ancient right. The Vorthan military had always been aggressive, but human presence in the region had previously kept them contained through a combination of diplomatic pressure and the implicit threat of military intervention. Now there was no such restraint. Council forces were scattered across dozens of species with competing interests and bureaucratic procedures that made rapid response impossible. When the Altarians requested permission to reinforce their border systems, the motion was debated for weeks while Vorthan raiders struck 3 more worlds. Dr. Maya Rodriguez worked in Laboratory Complex 7, another hidden facility where human scientists pushed the boundaries of weapons technology. The complex existed in a pocket of folded space that made it undetectable to conventional sensors while allowing instantaneous communication with other human installations. The new particle. Beam systems are ready for integration into the fleet, Maya reported to Director Sam Cooper during their weekly planning session. Each beam can convert matter directly to energy with nearly perfect efficiency. Cooper studied the test results with the same calm demeanor he had maintained throughout the 5-year withdrawal period. As humanities coordinator for external affairs, he supervised a network of hidden bases, research facilities, and observation posts that monitored galactic events while remaining completely invisible to Council sensors. "Excellent work, Maya," Cooper said. "How soon can we begin full production?" 6 months for the first 100 units, Maya replied. The new manufacturing systems that Ron's team developed can produce them much faster than traditional methods. The conversation was interrupted by an emergency transmission from Captain Rachel Torres, commander of Deep Watch Station 1. Rachel supervised a network of stealth observation posts that monitored Council space from the shadows, gathering intelligence on political developments and military movements. "Director, we're seeing massive Vorthan fleet movements in Sector 7, Rachel reported. "It looks like Grixstar is preparing for a major offensive against the Rim territories." Cooper activated the strategic display that showed current positions of all major fleets in Council space. The Vorthan formations were indeed massing for what appeared to be a coordinated assault on multiple systems simultaneously. Such an attack would overwhelm the scattered Council defense forces and could result in the conquest of dozens of worlds. "How long before they're ready to move?" Cooper asked. "Our analysts estimate 2 weeks, Rachel replied. "Maybe less if they're willing to accept reduced logistical support." Cooper considered the situation carefully. For 5 years, humanity had watched and prepared while the galaxy struggled with the consequences of their departure. The time for observation might be coming to an end, but the decision to emerge from hiding was not one he could make alone. "Continue monitoring," he ordered, "and prepare detailed assessments of Vorthan capabilities. We may need that information sooner than expected." As the transmission ended, Cooper gazed out at the construction yards where the newest human vessels took shape. Ships with names like New Horizon and Starlight Defender, crewed by people like Admiral Jack Patterson and Captain Emma Walsh, who had trained for years in anticipation of this moment. The galaxy had taught humanity that they could not depend on alien civilization for protection or justice. Now the question was whether the galaxy was ready to learn what humanity had become during their years of quiet preparation in the darkness beyond the stars. The Vorthan offensive might provide the answer to that question very soon. In his archive chamber on Nexus Prime, Zeklos detected another energy anomaly in the deep void. This one was larger than the others, suggesting something massive moving through folded space. He marked the location and timestamp in his private files, adding it to the growing evidence that humanity had not simply vanished but had been very busy indeed. The Council continued to debate and celebrate their success in removing the human problem from galactic affairs. They had no idea that the problem had been learning, growing, and preparing to return in ways they could never have imagined. 10 years had passed since humanity's departure, and the galaxy burned with the fires of war. Warlord Grixstar's massive fleet moved through space like a plague of metal locusts, consuming everything in their path. The Vorthan hegemony had abandoned all pretense of following Council law and launched the largest military offensive in galactic history. Chairman Vextar stood before the emergency session of the Galactic Council, his forearms gesturing frantically as he tried to coordinate a response to the crisis. The great crystal hall that had once echoed with comfortable Debates about trade regulations now rang with desperate pleas for military assistance. The Vorthan fleet has conquered 17 systems in the past month, Vexstar announced to the assembled delegates. Their advance shows no signs of slowing, and our scattered defense forces cannot match their concentrated assault. Counselor Nixar of the Draxi transmitted his response through the communication crystals, his people's homeworld now directly in the path of the Vorthan advance. Honorable Chairman, the Draxi request immediate military assistance. Our agricultural worlds cannot defend themselves against warships. The response came from Admiral Kethanos of the Altarian Defense Force, his scaled face grim on the viewing screen. The Altarian fleet is fully committed to defending our industrial systems. We cannot spare vessels for other territories. Similar responses came from every major species. The Luminals claimed their energy-based ships were not suitable for conventional warfare. The Thalassans insisted their research vessels could not be converted for military use. The Zephyrians stated that their forces were needed to protect the Council's capital systems. Captain Rachel Torres watched the Council debates from her concealed observation post at the edge of known space. Deep Watch Station 1 had been monitoring Galactic communications for years, and Rachel had witnessed the steady deterioration of Council unity as the Vorthan threat grew larger. The Council response time has increased to an average of 6 weeks for emergency requests, Rachel reported to Director Sam Cooper during their secure transmission. Compare that to the human standard of 4 hours for distress calls. Cooper studied the tactical displays that showed Vorthan fleet movements across a dozen sectors. The enemy advance was methodical and overwhelming, crushing opposition through sheer numerical superiority and superior coordination. The scattered Council forces fought bravely but independently, with no unified command structure to coordinate their efforts. What's the status of our monitoring assets in the combat zones? Cooper asked. All stealth platforms are operational and undetected, Rachel replied. The Vorthans have no idea they're being observed. We have complete intelligence on their fleet compositions, supply lines, and tactical doctrines. At Research Complex Alpha, Dr. Alex Carter supervised the final tests of technology that would have been considered impossible when humanity had first departed from galactic civilization. The quantum fold drive systems could now transport massive vessels across distances that conventional faster-than-light travel would take months to cover. The fold generators are stable at ranges up to 500 light-years, reported physicist Linda Hayes as she monitored the test results. We can deploy our entire fleet anywhere in Council space within hours of receiving orders. Dr. Maya Rodriguez had completed development of weapon systems that operated on principles unknown to galactic science. Her particle conversion beams could disable enemy vessels without destroying them, while gravitational manipulation weapons could crush ships by creating artificial singularities. The new defensive systems are even more impressive, Maya told Alex during their project review. The phase shift shields can make our ships temporarily immune to all known weapon types by shifting them slightly out of normal space, engineer. Ron Blake oversaw production facilities that operated with efficiency no alien species could match. The manufacturing complexes use self-assembling molecular systems to build ships and equipment at speeds that seem magical compared to conventional methods. We can now produce a full battle fleet in less time than it takes the Council to approve a single ship requisition, Ron reported to Commander Jake Sullivan. Our production capacity exceeds the combined output of all Council species. Jake had spent the decade training the new generation of human military personnel who would crew the advanced vessels. These men and women, including officers like Captain Steve Davis and Commander Kelly Thompson, had learned tactics and strategies designed specifically to counter every known alien military doctrine. The Vorthan offensive reached its climax when Grixthar's personal fleet attacked the Draxi homeworld of Gentle Rivers. The peaceful farming communities had no defense against military-grade weapons, and their desperate transmissions for help went unanswered as Council bureaucracy debated the proper procedures for emergency intervention. Councillor Nixar stood in the ruins of his people's capital city as Vorthan ground forces landed to claim their conquest. The invaders had shown no mercy to civilian populations, treating the Draxi farmers as livestock to be herded and controlled. Any Council vessel responding to Draxi distress signals will be considered hostile, Grixthar announced in his broadcast. To the galaxy? The Rim territories now belong to the Vorthan hegemony by right of conquest. On Nexus Prime, archivist Zeklos reviewed the mounting evidence of his private investigation into human activities. The gravitational anomalies had grown stronger and more frequent, suggesting massive construction projects hidden in the void beyond known space. Energy signatures that matched human technology appeared throughout the galaxy, always brief and always in locations where no Council sensors could get clear readings. "They're watching everything," Zeklos concluded as he studied the data patterns. "Every battle, every transmission, every fleet movement is being monitored by invisible observers." The most disturbing discovery came when Zeklos detected synchronized energy pulses from multiple locations simultaneously. The pulses appeared in empty space across dozens of star systems, suggesting a communication network that spanned the entire galaxy. No known technology could maintain such a network without being detected by Council sensors. Whatever the humans have built out there, it's bigger than anything we imagined, Zeklos transmitted to his private research files. They haven't been hiding. They've been preparing for something. The Vorthan advance continued unopposed as Council forces retreated. From system after system, the enemy fleets seemed unstoppable, their victory assured by superior numbers and the complete inability of their opponents to mount a coordinated defense. Director Cooper received reports from human observation posts throughout the galaxy as the crisis reached its peak. Captain Emma Walsh monitored Vorthan supply convoys from her stealth ship, documenting their logistics and vulnerable points. Admiral Nicole Brooks supervised deep space reconnaissance missions that mapped every aspect of enemy operations. "The Vorthans are overextended," Cooper announced during the emergency planning session at Haven Station. "Their supply lines stretch across 30 systems, and they have no reserves to counter a coordinated attack." "Are we really going to intervene?" asked Admiral Jack Patterson, commander of the human fleet that had been built in secret over the past decade. The Council made their position on humanity very clear 10 years ago. Cooper considered the question as he watched real-time displays of Vorthan atrocities being committed against helpless civilian populations. The galaxy had rejected humanity, but innocent beings were suffering because the Council could not protect them. "Prepare the fleet for deployment," Cooper ordered. "It's time for the galaxy to learn what humanity has become during our years in exile." The order was transmitted instantly to every human facility in the hidden network that spanned the void beyond known space. Ships that had been built with technology decades in advance of anything the galaxy had ever seen began moving toward the combat zones. Captain Tony Miller received his deployment orders aboard the scout ship Silent Runner, one of dozens of vessels that would serve as the advance force for humanity's return. His crew had trained for years in preparation for this moment, and they moved with the efficiency of people who knew exactly what they were meant to do. The Vorthan hegemony was about to discover that their conquest of the galaxy would face opposition. From a source they had never expected, humanity was coming home, but not as the desperate refugees the Council might have anticipated. They were returning as something far more dangerous than the aliens, who had dismissed them, could possibly imagine. In the darkness between stars, human fleets began their final approach toward the battlefields where the fate of galactic civilization would be decided. The galaxy had taught humanity that they could not trust alien justice or alien protection. Now it was time for the galaxy to learn what lessons humanity had drawn from that education. The age of human exile was ending, but the age of human supremacy was about to begin. The space above the conquered Draxi homeworld shimmered as reality itself seemed to bend and twist. Warlord Grixthar stood on the bridge of his flagship Dominator, watching his sensors with growing confusion as gravitational readings spiked across impossible values. His tactical officer, a scarred veteran named Vector, stared at displays that showed nothing but empty space where the anomalies were occurring. "Report," Grixthar demanded, his massive form looming over the bridge crew. Unknown spatial distortions. Throughout the system, Victor replied. No identifiable source, but the energy readings are off our measurement scales. The distortions reached critical levels, and then space simply folded open like flower petals. Through the dimensional tiers came ships unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sleek vessels that seemed to be made of liquid starlight moved with impossible grace, their hulls shifting and flowing as they maneuvered through three-dimensional space as if it were a calm ocean. Admiral Jack Patterson stood on the bridge of the flagship New Horizon, watching the Vorthan fleet react to humanity's arrival with the satisfaction of someone whose plans had worked perfectly. The human ships had emerged from quantum-fold space at precisely calculated positions that gave them tactical advantage over the scattered enemy formations. All ships report successful deployment, announced Captain Emma Walsh from her squadron. Command ship. Enemy fleet caught completely off guard. No effective response detected. Commence Operation Homecoming, Jack ordered, his voice carrying across the communication networks that linked every human vessel in the fleet. The Vorthan warships opened fire with weapons that had conquered dozens of worlds, but their energy beams passed harmlessly through the human vessels as if they were attacking ghosts. The phase-shift defensive systems that Dr. Mayo Rodriguez had developed simply moved the human ships slightly out of normal space, making them immune to conventional weapons while allowing them to attack at will. Captain Steve Davis led the first assault wave in his ship Thunder Child, targeting the Vorthan heavy cruisers that formed the backbone of their fleet. His particle conversion beams struck enemy vessels with surgical precision, disabling their weapons and engines without destroying them or harming their crews. Disable, don't destroy, Jack reminded his commanders. We're here to end this war, not commit genocide? The Vorthan response was swift but futile. Grixthar ordered his entire fleet to concentrate fire on the human vessels, but their weapons continued to pass harmlessly through targets that seemed to exist in normal space only when they chose to attack. The human ships moved with speed and agility that defied known physics, dancing between enemy formations while systematically disabling every Vorthan vessel they encountered. Impossible. Grixthar snarled as he watched his supposedly invincible fleet being methodically neutralized by forces that shouldn't exist. What are these ships? Where did they come from? His answer came in the form of a direct transmission to his personal communication system. The face that appeared on his screen was human, but not one he recognized from the old council records. Warlord Grixthar, Director Sam Cooper said calmly. I am Director Cooper of the Human Protectorate. You will order your forces to cease all hostilities and withdraw from conquered territories immediately. Humans, Grixthar spat. The Council expelled your pathetic species a decade ago. You have no authority here. The Council's authority ended when they proved incapable of maintaining galactic peace, Cooper replied. Your war crimes against civilian populations have made you an enemy of humanity. Surrender now, or face the consequences of continued resistance. Grixthar cut the transmission and ordered his remaining ships to ram the human vessels since conventional weapons were useless. The Vorthan ships accelerated toward their targets, but the human vessels simply phased out of normal space completely, allowing the enemy to pass through empty coordinates while gravitational manipulation weapons created artificial singularities that crushed the attacking ships without killing their crews. Within 4 hours, the entire Vorthan invasion fleet had been neutralized. Not a single human ship had taken damage, while every enemy vessel drifted powerless in space with crews, safely contained but completely helpless. The intervention didn't stop with space combat. Human transport ships appeared in orbit around the conquered Draxi worlds, and teams of people in advanced environmental suits began materializing directly on planetary surfaces using personal teleportation technology. Dr. Alex Carter led the medical response teams that deployed across Gentle, Rivers, and the other attacked worlds. His people carried healing devices that seemed to work miracles, restoring radiation-damaged tissue and curing diseases that had been considered incurable by galactic medicine. The molecular reconstruction beams can repair any injury short of complete cellular destruction, Alex explained to the amazed Draxi medical personnel. Your people will recover completely from their ordeal. Engineer teams led by specialists like Commander Kelly Thompson began rebuilding the destroyed infrastructure using self-assembling materials that worked at speeds that seemed magical. Buildings rose from ruins in hours rather than months, while automated systems restored power grids and communication networks with efficiency that left local populations stunned. The most impressive demonstration came when Captain LeVar King's engineering corps rebuilt the Draxi capital city in a single day. The new structures were more advanced than anything the aliens had possessed before the invasion, incorporating technology that made them nearly indestructible while providing living conditions superior to what most galactic civilizations considered luxury accommodations. How is this possible? Counselor Nixar asked as he toured the rebuilt city that sparkled with materials unknown to galactic science. 10 years of focused development, King replied. When you don't have to explain your methods to oversight committees or share your discoveries with people who consider you primitive, you can accomplish remarkable things. The news of humanity's return spread across the galaxy at light speed, carried by emergency transmissions that reached every council world within days. The reports seemed impossible to believe. Humans had not only returned but had demonstrated technological capabilities that surpassed the combined knowledge of all galactic civilizations. On Nexus Prime, Chairman Vexstar convened an emergency session of the Galactic Council to address the crisis. The Great Crystal Hall buzzed with fear and confusion as delegates tried to understand how the species they had dismissed as dangerous primitives had become something that made their own achievements look like children's toys. The human fleet defeated the entire Vorthan invasion force without sustaining a single casualty, Vexter announced to the assembly. Their technology appears to be centuries ahead of anything in our databases. Archivist Zeklos finally presented his evidence about human activities during their decade of exile: the gravitational anomalies, energy signatures, and communication networks he had detected now made perfect sense. Humanity had built a hidden civilization in the void beyond known space, using their years of isolation to develop capabilities that transformed them from a minor galactic power into something far beyond anything the Council could challenge. They've been watching us, Zeklos reported. Every battle, every political decision, every fleet movement has been monitored by observers we couldn't detect. They know everything about our capabilities while we know nothing about theirs. The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply survived their exile, but had used it to become the dominant force in the galaxy. Their return was not that of refugees seeking readmission to galactic civilization, but of a power that no longer needed anyone's permission to act. Director Cooper's broadcast reached every inhabited world in Council space simultaneously, transmitted through communication networks that operated on principles unknown to galactic science. Citizens of the galaxy, Cooper began, his image appearing on every screen and communication device across hundreds of star systems. 15 years ago, the Galactic Council decided that humanity was too dangerous to participate in civilized space. They were correct about our capabilities, but wrong about our intentions. The human species withdraws its recognition of Galactic Council authority. We established the Human Protectorate as an independent power dedicated to maintaining peace and protecting innocent populations from aggression. Any species that desires our protection may apply for inclusion. Those that prefer council governance are free to maintain their existing arrangements. However, we will not tolerate military aggression between species or the abuse of civilian populations. Any violation of these principles will result in human intervention. This is not a threat, but a statement of policy that will be enforced with whatever means are necessary. The transmission ended, and the galaxy was left to contemplate a new reality. Humanity had returned not as supplicants but as the self-appointed guardians of galactic peace. They possessed technology that made resistance futile and had demonstrated the will to use it against anyone who threatened innocent beings. The age of council supremacy was over. The age of human protection had begun, whether the galaxy wanted it or not. 3 months after humanity's dramatic return, the galaxy struggled to adapt to a new reality that no one had anticipated. The human protectorate operated from a massive space station that had materialized in the neutral zone between Council space and the former Vorthan territories. The station, called Haven Prime, was larger than most planetary cities and housed administrative facilities that coordinated human activities across the galaxy. Ambassador Paul Henderson stood before the emergency assembly of the Galactic Council, his presence a stark reminder of how completely the balance of power had shifted. Unlike Kate Morrison 15 years earlier, Paul was not here to request anything or seek approval for human actions. He was here to explain the new reality that humanity would impose on galactic civilization. "Honorable delegates," Paul began, his voice carrying the quiet confidence of someone who spoke for the strongest force in known space. "The Human Protectorate has established new principles for galactic governance that will be enforced regardless of Council decisions." Chairman Vextar's mandibles clicked nervously as he tried to maintain some semblance of authority. "Ambassador Henderson, the Council does not recognize human authority over galactic affairs. Your species has no legal right to impose policies on sovereign civilizations." Paul smiled with the patience of someone explaining simple concepts to children. "Chairman Vextar, 15 years ago, this council demonstrated that galactic law protects only those with sufficient power to enforce their rights. You taught us that lesson very thoroughly. We have learned it well." The assembled delegates buzzed with agitation as Paul activated a holographic display that showed current military deployments across the galaxy. Human patrol fleets now maintained permanent stations in dozens of star systems, their advanced vessels serving as an implied threat to anyone considering aggressive action. "The Protectorate currently includes 47 species that have requested human protection," Paul continued. "These include the Draxi, whose agricultural worlds are now defended by technology that makes Vorthan invasion impossible. They also include the Rim colonies, whose mining operations now operate under human security guarantees." Councillor Tyshana of the luminals flickered with colors that indicated extreme agitation. "Your species cannot simply declare authority over galactic affairs. There are established procedures, treaty obligations, legal frameworks that must be respected." "The same legal frameworks that failed to prevent the Vorthan conquest of 17 systems?" Paul asked. "The same procedures that required 6 weeks of debate while civilian populations were being slaughtered?" The uncomfortable silence that followed his words demonstrated how completely the Council's credibility had been destroyed by their inability to respond effectively to the crisis that humanity had resolved in a matter of days. Captain Lavra King supervised the establishment of the first Protectorate patrol base in former Vorthan space. The facility appeared seemingly overnight, constructed by automated systems that worked with impossible speed and precision. The base could house a full battle fleet while serving as a diplomatic and commercial center for the surrounding systems. "Local species are already requesting trade agreements," Lavara reported to Director Cooper during their weekly briefing. "The Altarians want access to our manufacturing technology. The Centauri Collective is offering exclusive mining rights in exchange for protection from raiders." Cooper studied the requests that flooded in from across the galaxy. Species that had once supported humanity's expulsion from the Council now competed desperately for inclusion in the Protectorate. The benefits of human protection were obvious to anyone who compared the peace and prosperity of Protectorate worlds with the chaos and uncertainty that plagued Council space. Dr. Maya Rodriguez had established research facilities on a dozen worlds, sharing selected human technologies with allied species while maintaining absolute superiority in critical areas. Her teams worked with alien scientists who struggled to understand principles that humanity had mastered years earlier. "We're providing medical technology that can extend lifespans by centuries," Maya explained to a gathering of Draxi researchers. "Energy systems that can power entire worlds without environmental damage. Transportation methods that make interstellar travel as simple as walking across a room." The alien scientists listened with the desperate attention of people who realized they were witnessing their own obsolescence. Human technology was not simply advanced, but operated on fundamentally different principles that challenged basic assumptions about how the universe worked. Engineer Commander Janet Pierce led the Galactic Response Force, a new organization that included humans and allied species working together as equals. Unlike the rigid hierarchies of Council military forces, the Response Force operated with flexibility and efficiency that made traditional military doctrine seem primitive. Response time to any emergency in Protectorate space is now under 2 hours, Janet reported. Compare that to the Council average of 6 weeks for routine requests. The efficiency of human administration was becoming legendary throughout the galaxy. Problems that would have required months of Council bureaucracy were resolved in days, through systems that operated with mechanical precision while maintaining genuine concern for the welfare of all species. Former Warlord Grixthar found himself serving as a regional administrator under human supervision, his aggressive instincts channeled into infrastructure development rather than conquest. The former Vorthan territories had been transformed into peaceful commercial zones where species that had been enemies for centuries now worked together under human guidance. Your people have made me more effective than I ever was as a warlord, Grixthar admitted to Commander Steve Davis during one of their coordination meetings. Under Council law, I commanded through fear and violence. Under human guidance, I achieved better results through cooperation and mutual benefit. The transformation was not limited to former enemy territories. Throughout Council space, species began adopting human methods of organization and problem-solving. The contrast between human efficiency and Council bureaucracy was so stark that many civilizations quietly began implementing Protectorate policies even without formal membership. Archivist Zeklos had been appointed as the primary liaison between the Council and the Protectorate, his years of studying human activities making him uniquely qualified to understand their capabilities and intentions. He worked from an office aboard Haven Prime, surrounded by technology that still amazed him despite months of exposure. The humans don't want to rule the galaxy, Zeklos explained to the Council during one of his regular reports. They want to prevent anyone else from ruling it through force. Their goal is stability and peace, but they will enforce those goals with whatever power is necessary. The distinction was lost on many Council delegates who could not understand power that was not used for personal aggrandizement. Human technology could have easily conquered every world in the galaxy, but instead it was used to protect agricultural communities, support scientific research, and maintain trade routes that benefited all species. Dr. Alex Carter had established the Galactic Medical Institute, a research facility that operated on principles unknown to traditional science. Diseases that had plagued civilizations for millennia were cured through techniques that seemed like magic to alien observers. We're not just treating symptoms, Alex explained to a conference of galactic medical professionals. We're repairing the fundamental biological processes that cause disease and aging. Within a generation, death from natural causes could become a choice rather than an inevitability. The promise of virtual immortality was perhaps the most powerful tool in humanity's diplomatic arsenal. Species that had initially resisted human authority found it difficult to argue with people who could offer their populations lives measured in millennia rather than decades. Ambassador Paul Henderson concluded his address to the Council with words that would be remembered as the definitive statement of the new galactic order. 15 years ago, you decided that humanity was too dangerous to participate in civilized space. Paul said, "You were correct about our capabilities but wrong about our character. We are indeed dangerous to those who would abuse the weak or profit from conflict. We are lethal to anyone who would use force to impose their will on peaceful populations. But to those who seek only to live in peace and pursue their own happiness without harming others, we offer protection that no force in the galaxy can challenge. We offer technology that can transform your worlds into paradises. We offer partnership based on mutual respect rather than domination. The choice is yours." Join the Protectorate as free and equal members, continue under Council governance if you prefer, or attempt to challenge human authority and face the consequences. But know that the age of conquest and exploitation is over. Humanity has returned, to ensure that it never begins again. The great crystal hall fell silent as delegates contemplated a future where their choices were limited but their security was absolute. The council that had once dismissed humanity as primitive now faced the reality that they had become irrelevant in a galaxy where human power was supreme. In the years that followed, most species chose the security and prosperity of the Protectorate,